Hello! Now for the final bit here about completing the homemade inlay. So it's still stuffed in the jig from yesterday, and we pull it out and we take a look at it and see how we did. Got a gap in there, which is not a showstopper. And this is, I'm going to use this as the front side, the side where we'll start the ripping the veneers. So it looks pretty good. The other side, not so good. And that was intentional. There were a few bad cuts in there and didn't fit just right. So one side's good, one side's not so good, but that's okay. We got extra here. So we're going to begin the process of sanding and polishing and getting everything good and flush with each other. Here's the front side, good and flush. Been sanded with the belt sander and pretty nice, using the old fingernail test to make sure things are flush. Not bad. And here's another look after it's been given an extra polish. Yeah, I got a little bad one there on the end. This is after we sanded down the other side, I believe, and so that's okay. We don't have to use it because we got extra. So all nice, sanded, smoothed, and polished, and that thing is ready to be cut up with the bandsaw. So that's what next. We're coming over here in the bandsaw, and we need to make a thin rip jig. The bandsaw. So the first thing we do is make sure that we're using the miter gauge here to make the thin rip jig, and we make sure the miter gauge and right there is make sure the tension on the blade is good and tight, and make absolutely sure using that square that the wooden block there on the miter gauge is perfectly square with the blade. Real important if you're really cutting real micro thin strips like this. So now we need to come over and we nip that old board off. And so now we need to make sure that we have 3/32 of an inch gap between the blade and the thin rip jig. So normally if you bought a thin rip jig, you could adjust it to 3/32, but don't really have one that'll fit in that groove on the bandsaw, so we need to come and make absolutely sure it's 3/32 of an inch. So we do that by coming over here, taking the ruler, marking it 3/32 of an inch, going back, fitting it to make sure it looks like 3/32 of an inch. It doesn't, so come back and measure it. Sorry, I'm still not friends with the GoPro. And come back, try it again, and once we're sure it's 3/32 of an inch, remove it from the miter gauge, come over to the bandsaw, turn it on, and give it a shave. 3/32 of an inch shave. There we go. And now to make sure it's all perfectly square and level, take a file to it, run it down, looks great. Triple man check it with the square. Again, GoPro. Once we know it's square and good, mount it back onto the miter gauge. It's really important to get your measurements right when you're cutting your own veneers. You can really ruin stuff that you put a lot of hard work in real quick. So make sure that it's just right. And do a test fit. After you've marked that, after you marked your workpiece out, make sure it fits in with the miter gauge and that thin rip jig. And once you've got it set, lock the thin rip jig in place with the clamp. And we're 100% sure that that's the right width. So double check to make sure it's square so you get a good straight flush cut, nice, smooth flush cut. Okay? Really important that this be square. So far it looks good. Also, make sure you got the blade tensioned right, and make sure you got those rollers exactly right. One little tiny, it's like a 1/128th of an inch off the blade. So now we're ready to rip. Fit her in there. Move the guy over there and make sure everything fits. Move that. Everything's all tight down and snug, and then we can begin cutting. That fence always I always had trouble with that fence. I don't know why. It's not a really good fence. So check it and then start ripping. And sure enough, she rips right along the line. She'll be 3/32 of an inch, and it is perfect. If you get everything set up, it will be. I'll speed it up a little bit here. Normally I do this pretty slow to make sure we don't get any drift with that blade. I'll zip her on down. Perfect. See? Looks really great. And now we've got 5 good rips out of that workpiece. That all came out pretty good. One, the number 5 is just off a little bit. I'm hoping not to have to use it, but it's okay if I do. You can always fix this stuff. I mean, wood is easy material to fix. So we bring in here is, come on in and measure the tabletop to make sure I have enough material. I'm pretty sure I do, and I won't have to use that 5th cut, and I have a 6th one I could probably use as well, but it's in pretty sad shape. So we need 94 inches minimum, and we have 137 inches of material. Good. And I thought I'd bring it in and show what it would look like after it's inlaid into the side of the table. Very nice. It looks really cool. So that is how you do your own fancy veneer, and this is after it's been sanded. I brought it over, put some undergrit sandpaper on it and polished it up, all nice and even and smooth. Looks great. More tomorrow.